Struggling human finds 16-year-old alien girl buried alive by her own siblings. The wind howled through the dry ravine, carrying with it the coppery scent of dust and decay. Miles trudged forward, his boots sinking into the cracked earth. His water was nearly gone. His ship lay in ruins behind him, and the twin suns above scorched his skin like molten glass. He'd been stranded on this forsaken planet, Vareth, for almost a week, surviving on condensation and luck. But luck was running thin. He crested a dune, hoping to spot the faint shimmer of a settlement. Instead he froze. The sand below had been disturbed, lines, uneven piles, and something else. Faint sound. He knelt, pressing his ear close to the ground. There it was again. A muffled, desperate sound like crying through fabric. "Hello," he rasped, his throat raw. "Is someone?" A weak, panicked voice came through, barely audible. "Please, help me." Miles grabbed the shovel from his pack and began digging. The sun blazed overhead, but he didn't stop. The more he dug, the clearer the voice became. It wasn't human. There was a lilting, melodic tone to it. When his shovel hit something hard, he threw it aside and dug with his hands. A hand broke through the sand, thin, trembling, covered in a faint silver sheen. Not metal, but skin that shimmered faintly under the light. He gasped and clawed faster until he uncovered her face. She was young, maybe 16 by human standards, with small crystalline ridges running from her temples to her neck. Her eyes, large and luminescent, fluttered open, glowing a dim violet. "Don't be afraid," Miles said softly, brushing the sand away. "You're safe now." Her lips trembled. "They buried me alive." He blinked. "Who did?" "My siblings," she whispered, tears streaking down her dusted face. "They said I wasn't pure enough." Miles stared, his heart tightening. He wrapped her in his jacket and poured his last drops of water onto her lips. She drank shakily, eyes wide with fear. "I'll get you out of here," he said. "Just hold on." She nodded weakly as he lifted her. She was lighter than she looked, fragile like glass. He carried her to the shade of a half-buried rock and let her rest. Her name, she told him later, was Kaelith, and she belonged to the Zyrene, a species known for their beauty and merciless traditions. The Zyrene believed that any genetic mutation, a change in skin pattern, eye color, or psychic frequency, was a curse upon the bloodline. Kaelith's violet eyes, she said, were the reason she was condemned. "I thought they loved me," she murmured, staring at the horizon. "My older sister held my hand while they lowered me into the sand." Miles clenched his fists. He knew cruelty. Humans weren't innocent either. But this was monstrous. That night, as the sun sank and the air turned cold, he built a small fire using scraps from his wrecked ship. Kaelith huddled beside him, wrapped in his jacket, her body trembling. "Why help me?" she asked suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Your kind fears mine." "Because no one deserves to be buried alive," he said simply. She looked at him for a long moment, her glowing eyes reflecting the flames. Then she leaned closer. "They'll come for me," she said. "My siblings won't let me live. They'll finish what they started." Miles stared into the fire. "Then we'll be ready." By morning they were on the move. Miles scavenged a small power cell from his ship, enough to activate his emergency beacon. He hoped to signal a passing cargo freighter before the Zyrene found them. Kaelith moved silently beside him, her steps barely disturbing the sand. But she stopped suddenly. "They're close," she whispered. "I can feel them." Miles looked around, gripping his pulse rifle. The dunes stretched endlessly, but the air shimmered. Then, like ghosts emerging from fog, 3 figures appeared. Zyrene, tall, elegant, with eyes like shards of crystal. Their armor gleamed faintly blue, and they carried slender energy lances. Kaelith stepped back, terror etched on her face. "My brothers." "Kaelith," the tallest one said coldly. "You dishonor our blood. Come quietly, and we will finish what must be done." Miles raised his rifle. "She's not going anywhere." The Zyrene leader turned his gaze to him. "A human interfering in our rights. Foolish." They moved fast, too fast. One lance slashed the air, sending a streak of blue energy toward him. Miles dove aside, rolling through the sand, firing wildly. One shot grazed an attacker's shoulder, sending him reeling. Kaelith's eyes flared bright violet. The sand beneath them trembled, vibrating with unseen energy. A pulse of light burst from her body, throwing the Zyrene back. They screamed as the energy rippled through them, disarming and disorienting. Miles scrambled to his feet, grabbing Kaelith's hand. "Run!" They sprinted toward the canyon. Behind them, the surviving siblings shouted in fury. A blast struck near their feet, showering them with sand. Kaelith stumbled, clutching her chest. "I can't control it." "You don't have to," Miles said. "Just hold on." They dove into a crevice just as a blast seared the rocks behind them. Miles threw his body over hers, shielding her from the debris. When the dust cleared, the Zyrene were gone, retreated or dead, he didn't know. Kaelith opened her eyes, tears streaming down her face. "You risked everything." He smiled faintly. "Guess I'm not very smart." Days later, the rescue beacon finally pinged. A Terran freighter descended, kicking up sand and wind. As Miles helped Kaelith aboard, she turned to look back at the endless desert, the place that almost became her grave. "What will you do now?" he asked. She hesitated. "Live," she said quietly. "Something they never let me do." As the freighter lifted off, the planet shrank beneath them, a pale wound in the void. Miles looked at her one last time. "Welcome to a second chance," he said. Kaelith smiled softly, her violet eyes shining brighter than the stars. And for the first time in years, Miles felt hope. The freighter's engines hummed as it climbed through the thin atmosphere of Vareth. Miles stood by the viewport, watching the desert shrink into a smear of gold and rust below. His hands still shook from the fight, but for the first time in days, he wasn't thinking about survival. He was thinking about what came next. Kaelith sat quietly in the med bay seat beside him, wrapped in a blanket that seemed far too large for her small frame. The ship's medic had treated her wounds, yet her eyes still carried the weight of everything she'd lost. "They won't stop," she whispered. "The Zyrene don't forgive defiance." Miles looked at her, then at the stars beyond. "Let them come," he said. "You're not alone anymore." For a long moment, silence filled the cabin, broken only by the distant hum of engines. Then Kaelith reached out and took his hand. Her skin was cool and faintly luminous under the sterile light. "When I was buried," she said softly, "I thought the world had forgotten me. But then, I heard your voice." Miles smiled faintly, squeezing her hand. "Maybe the universe wanted us to find each other." Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, each one a promise of something new, something better. Kaelith turned her face toward them, her violet eyes reflecting their light. "Will Earth accept me?" she asked. He chuckled. "If they don't, they'll have to deal with me first." For the first time since he'd crashed, Miles laughed, a small, honest sound that filled the empty corridors. Kaelith joined in, her laughter like wind chimes on a forgotten world.